What if the most terrifying thing about Medusa wasn't her hair, but her biological reality? We are stripping away centuries of romanticism to reveal a creature rooted in apotropaic dread and skeletal decay. This is the history of the ancient gaze, a journey into the dark heart of Greek biological horror. Welcome to the Conjuring Files. Join us. Today, we are opening a file that has been buried under layers of marble dust and poetic lies for millennia. We are not here to retell the story of a beautiful woman cursed by a jealous goddess. We are here to exhume the truth of the Gorgon, an entity of pure, chthonic terror that haunted the nightmares of the ancient world. We are tracing the archaeological origins of Medusa through the lens of biological horror, connecting the petrification legends to the bone-chilling reality of prehistoric fossils that drove the Greeks to madness. If you are ready to look upon the face that turns flesh to stone, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We are about to descend into a world where mythology is just a mask for a primal, predatory reality. Let's begin. To understand the true horror of Medusa, you must first unlearn everything you think you know. Modern culture has softened the Gorgon. We see her as a victim, a tragic figure of female empowerment, a beautiful woman wronged by the gods. This is a lie. This is a revisionist fantasy born centuries after the monster first stalked the human psyche. When we peel back the layers of Ovid's poetic revisionism, we find something far more disturbing in the oldest strata of Greek archaeology. The archaic Gorgon was never a victim. She was never a woman. She was a primal monster. She was a physical manifestation of chthonic rot, and her origins are rooted in a biological horror so visceral it makes the blood run cold. In the Archaic period, long before the Romans tried to humanize her, Medusa was the embodiment of death itself. She was not born. She emerged from the dark, fertile earth, from the chthonic depths where the boundaries between life and decay dissolve. The ancient Greeks did not fear her because she was sad. They feared her because she was inevitable. She was the entropy of the flesh, the accelerator of decomposition. To encounter the Gorgon was to confront the reality that all matter returns to dust. This is why the earliest depictions of her are not sensual. They are grotesque. They are designed to repel, to shock, to induce a primal revulsion that bypasses the rational mind and strikes directly at the brainstem. But where did this image come from? How did the Greeks conceive of such a specific, nightmarish biology? The answer lies in the ground beneath their feet. As the Greeks expanded their cities and dug into the earth for foundations, they began to unearth remains that defied explanation. They found skulls of massive, prehistoric beasts, mastodons, giant sloths, and extinct rhinos, bones so large they could not belong to any known animal. To the ancient mind, these were not fossils. They were the remains of giants, of monsters that once walked the earth. Consider the skull of a prehistoric proboscidean. It is massive, with a central nasal opening that, without the trunk, looks like a gaping, singular eye. The Greeks looked at these skulls and saw the face of the Gorgon. They saw the biological evidence of a time when the world was ruled by things that should not exist. The myth of Medusa was not just a story, it was an attempt to categorize the biological horror. The snakes in her hair may have been a misinterpretation of neural canals. This connection to fossils grounds the legend in a terrifying reality. The Gorgon was not a metaphor, she was a memory. A genetic memory encoded in the collective unconscious, warning humanity of the predators that lurked in the shadows of prehistory. They were acknowledging a lineage of death that predated humanity. The horror of Medusa is the horror of our own mortality, given a face, given tusks, given a gaze that can stop the heart and freeze the blood. As we move deeper into the anatomy of this nightmare, you will see that every feature was designed to trigger our deepest fears. Stay with us. The face is turning. Let us dissect the Gorgon, not as a myth, but as a biological entity. Close your eyes and imagine the archaic Medusa. Erase the image of the seductress. What remains is a chimera of predatory violence, a creature assembled from the darkest corners of the natural world. Her face was not human. It was a mask of aggression, a warning sign written in flesh and bone. Protruding from her mouth were the tusks of a wild boar, curved and yellowed, dripping with saliva that hissed when it hit the ground. These were not decorative, they were weapons. In the ancient world, the boar was a symbol of uncontrollable rage, village, a creature that could disembowel a man in seconds. By grafting these tusks onto the Gorgon's face, the Greeks were telling us that she was an apex predator, a beast that hunted not for food, but for the sheer joy of destruction. Her eyes were not windows to the soul. They were bulging, popping orbs that seemed ready to burst from their sockets. They were wide, unblinking, and fixed in a stare of eternal malice. In the animal kingdom, a wide-eyed stare is a threat display. It signals dominance. It signals that the predator has locked onto its prey and will not let go. The Gorgon's eyes were designed to paralyze. To look into them was to be hunted. It was to feel the weight of a gaze that stripped away your humanity and reduced you to trembling meat. And from between those lips, past the tusks, hung a distended tongue, lolling out like that of a dying dog, but thick and muscular, capable of tasting the fear in the air. It was a sensory organ of death, flickering to catch the scent of your terror. But the horror did not stop at the face. The Gorgon was winged. These were not the delicate, feathered wings of an angel, nor the butterfly wings of a fairy. They were heavy, leathery appendages, perhaps scaled or covered in coarse fur, built for power rather than grace. They allowed her to swoop down from the heights, silent as a shadow, to snatch her victims before they could scream. The sound of her wings was not a flutter. It was the rush of wind, the displacement of air that warned of an incoming strike. She was a creature of the air and the earth, a hybrid that defied the natural order, combining the brute strength of the boar with the aerial dominance of the raptor. Her hands were bronze. This is a detail often overlooked, but it is crucial. Bronze is the metal of war, of weapons, of armor. Her fingers were not soft. They were claws of living metal, cold and unyielding. They could tear through flesh and shatter bone with the ease of a scythe through wheat. The bronze hand suggests that the Gorgon was not entirely organic. She was a fusion of biology and metallurgy, a golem of death forged in the fires of the underworld. She was the embodiment of the weaponized feminine, the wild, untamed force of nature that could not be domesticated, only feared. Connect these traits to the ancient Greek fears of the wild. The Greeks lived in a world where the boundary between civilization and wilderness was thin. The forests were home to wolves, bears, and snakes. The sea was a realm of storms and monsters. The Gorgon represented the ultimate expression of this wildness. She was the untamed feminine, the mother nature that gives life, but also takes it away with ruthless efficiency. She was the storm that drowns the sailor, the earthquake that swallows the city, the disease that rots the body. She was the predatory natural world given form, a reminder that humanity is always one step away from being consumed by the chaos that surrounds us. The anatomy of the nightmare is a map of our deepest phobias. The tusks trigger the fear of being gored. The eyes trigger the fear of being watched by a predator. The tongue triggers the disgust of decay. The wings trigger the fear of the unknown descending from above. The bronze hands trigger the fear of being torn apart. Every aspect of the Gorgon was engineered to maximize terror. She was not just a monster. She was a psychological weapon, a manifestation of the collective trauma of a species that knew deep down that it was not at the top of the food chain. As we explore the potency of her image, we will see how this biological horror was captured and weaponized by the ancients to protect themselves from the very forces she represented. The claws are scraping, the wings are beating. In the archaeological record, we find the Gorgon everywhere. She is stamped on coins, painted on vases, carved into temple pediments, and forged onto shields. But the most chilling artifacts are the Gorgon masks. These were not mere decorations. They were ritual objects charged with apotropaic power. Apotropaic magic is the practice of turning away evil, of using a symbol to ward off harm. The Gorgon mask was the ultimate apotropaic device. The logic was simple yet profound. To fight fear, you must use a greater fear. To repel a monster, you must become the monster. Imagine standing in the entrance of a sacred temple in the 6th century BCE. The air is thick with incense and the murmur of prayers. Above the doorway, looming in the shadows, is a Gorgonion, a mask of the Gorgon's face. It is front-facing. This is critical. In Greek art, figures are almost always shown in profile. The profile is safe. It is detached. It allows the viewer to observe without being observed. But the Gorgon breaks this rule. She stares directly at you. Her bulging eyes lock onto yours. Her tusks snarl in your direction. Her tongue lolls out as if tasting your presence. The mask confronts the viewer with an intensity that is almost physical. It is a visual assault. It forces you to acknowledge the horror. It demands your attention. This front-facing gaze was a radical departure from artistic norms, and it was deliberate. The mask was designed to catch the eye of anyone approaching the sacred space. It was a sentinel. It was a warning. The belief was that the image of the Gorgon could physically repel evil. If a demon, a curse, or a malevolent spirit tried to enter the temple, it would see the face of its master and flee. The Gorgon was the guardian of the threshold, the keeper of the gate. Her image created a barrier of terror that only the purified could cross. To walk beneath the Gorgon's gaze was to be tested. If you were worthy, the mask would protect you. If you were not, the mask would judge you. The potency of the mask lay in its ability to channel the Chthonic power of the earth. The Gorgon was associated with the underworld, with the dark forces that lay beneath the surface. The eyes are opening, the mouth is widening. The most famous attribute of Medusa is her gaze. To look at her is to turn to stone. This is not just a magical trope. It is a profound metaphor for the neurological and psychological dread of paralysis. Think about the sensation of fear. When you are terrified, your body freezes, your muscles tense, your breath catches, you become rooted to the spot, unable to move, unable to speak. This is the fight-or-flight response gone wrong, the moment when the brain is overwhelmed and the body shuts down. The Petrification legend is a dramatization of this biological reality. The Gorgon's gaze induces a state of extreme shock, a rigor mortis of the living. It turns the warm, fluid body into cold, inanimate stone. It stops the heart. It halts the blood. It is the ultimate expression of powerlessness. The neurological dread of the gaze is amplified by the concept of the evil eye. In many cultures, the eye is believed to be a channel for power. To look at someone with malice can cause harm. The Gorgon takes this belief to its logical extreme. Her eyes are so full of hatred, so concentrated with chthonic energy, that they can alter the molecular structure of reality. They can transmute flesh into rock. This is a terrifying inversion of the creative power of the gods. Where the gods breathe life into dust, the Gorgon breathes death into life. She is the anti-creator, the destroyer of form. Her gaze is a weapon of mass petrification, capable of turning an entire army into a garden of statues. Consider the ritual significance of the Aegis, the shield of Athena. According to myth, Athena gave the hero Perseus a polished bronze shield to use as a mirror, allowing him to see Medusa's reflection without looking directly at her. He used the shield to decapitate her. But the horror did not end with her death. Athena took the severed head and mounted it on her shield, the Aegis. The head retained its lethal power. Even in death, the Gorgon could petrify. This suggests that the power was not in the living body, but in the image itself. The head was a battery of terror. The head was a tool of divine warfare, a way to unleash chaos upon the enemies of Olympus. The Aegis represents the domestication of the monster. Athena, the goddess of wisdom and strategy, harnessed the raw power of the Gorgon and used it for her own purposes. She turned the wild, untamed force of nature into a weapon of civilization, order triumphing over chaos. But the fact that the head was needed at all is telling. It suggests that order is fragile. It suggests that civilization is always under threat from the forces of decay. The transition from the beastly face of the archaic Gorgon to the beautiful Hellenistic Medusa masks a deeper fear. Medusa becomes a beautiful woman, but this beauty is a trap. It hides the rot beneath. When you are vulnerable, the mask slips. The beauty dissolves into horror. This duality is the essence of the Gorgon. She is the face of death and the gaze of the abyss. The stone is cold, the blood is still. Why does the Gorgon endure? Why, after thousands of years, does her image still resonate with us? Why do we see her on logos, in tattoos, in movies, and in our nightmares? The answer lies in her universality. The Gorgon is not bound by time or culture. She is a symbol of raw, uncompromising power. She represents the forces that lie beyond human control, the chaos that threatens to overwhelm us, the death that waits for us all. She is the Chthonic icon, the eternal guardian of the threshold between the known and the unknown. Her legacy is not just one of terror, but of resilience. She is a reminder that we are part of a larger, darker world, and that we must respect the powers that inhabit it. Recent archaeological findings in 2026 have shed new light on the diversity of Gorgon worship. Excavations in remote regions of Greece and Asia Minor have uncovered Gorgon images in contexts previously unknown. We have found Gorgon amulets in the cradles of infants, suggesting that she was invoked to protect the most vulnerable from the evil eye. We have found Gorgon reliefs in the tombs of the poor, indicating that she was a guardian of the dead, a psychopomp who guided souls through the underworld. We have found Gorgon graffiti on the walls of brothels and taverns, showing that she was a symbol of the marginalized, a protector of those who lived on the fringes of society. These findings suggest that the Gorgon's image was used in even more diverse warding rituals than we previously thought. She was not just a symbol of the elite, she was a symbol of the people. She was a companion to the outcast, a defender of the weak. Her power was accessible to anyone who was willing to face her. This democratization of the Gorgon's image reveals a deeper truth about the ancient world. The Greeks understood that horror is a great equalizer. In the face of death, all humans are the same. The Gorgon reminded them of this. She reminded them that their status, their wealth, their power meant nothing when confronted with the raw force of nature. She was the great leveler, the bringer of humility. Today, we live in a world that tries to hide death. We sanitize it. We medicalize it, we push it to the margins. But the Gorgon forces us to look. She forces us to acknowledge the reality of decay, the inevitability of loss, the fragility of life. She is a countercultural symbol, a rejection of the shallow optimism of the modern age. She tells us that beauty is fleeting, that power is temporary, that everything returns to the earth. She is a memento mori, a reminder to live fully, to face our fears, to embrace the darkness as well as the light. To reclaim the Gorgon is to reclaim our connection to the primal world. It is to acknowledge that we are not separate from nature, but part of it. It is to accept that we are capable of both creation and destruction, of love and hate, of life and death. The Gorgon is not a monster to be slain. She is a force to be reckoned with. She is a symbol of raw, uncompromising power that exists beyond the reach of mortal morality. She is the truth that lies beneath the surface, the bone that remains after the flesh is gone, the gaze that sees through the illusions of the mind. As we close this file, remember the Gorgon. Remember the tusks, the wings, the bronze hands. Remember the gaze that turns to stone. Remember that she is still out there, in the shadows, in the fossils, in the mirrors. She is waiting for you to look. She is waiting for you to acknowledge her. She is waiting for you to understand that the horror is not something to be feared, but something to be respected. The Gorgon is the truth, and the truth is terrifying. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the heart of the monster. If you want to continue exploring the dark corners of history and the paranormal, please like this video, share it with someone who dares to look, and subscribe to the Conjuring Files. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a file. Remember, the stone remembers everything. The truth is in the files.